In 2019, YouTube was caught violating the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA. Since settling, YouTube has enacted new policies that are meant to serve as a smokescreen so they can dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators. As such, for my own protection, it is my obligation to advise you that this video is not aimed at children. My target audience is not children. Parental discretion is advised. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Sentinel Vlogs. It's been a while since I've done a vlog. I don't know what spurred this on, I just wanted to do it. Today, I will be ranking the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. And really, there's it's no more explanatory than that, so before we begin, let's go over the ground rules. Number 1, everything presented is my own opinion. These are my own thoughts and feelings, and if you disagree with me or my ranking, that's awesome. Please feel free to start a conversation in the comments below. Number 2, I will only be doing the 6 Peter Jackson movies, alright? So you won't see Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings here, and you won't see the Rankin Bass Hobbit or Return of the King here. Mainly for no other reason other than it's been a really long time since I've watched them. I think the last time I saw The Hobbit and The Return of the King, I was a child, and the last time I saw Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, I was in high school. It's been a while, and I hardly remember them. That being said, I will say, despite my ranking of the Peter Jackson movies, which I do enjoy, my personal favorite, at least of Lord of the Rings, my personal favorite adaptation is the BBC radio adaptation that was done in the 80s. It starred Ian Holm as Frodo, Bill Nighy, the actor guy, as Samwise, Michael Hodern as Gandalf, and David Collings as Legolas. And those are the only names I remember. It also featured, fun little fact, the actors who voiced Boromir and Gollum in the Ralph Bakshi movie reprised their roles in that radio adaptation. And finally, before we start the list, I feel it should be worth noting that my ranking, in part, is based on the extended editions. So, I really don't think there's any more to say than that, so let's just jump right into the list. And starting us off at the bottom, number 6, The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Now, after watching the movie in theaters and then buying the extended edition and watching that, the first thing I did, well, I guess the third thing at this point, was I watched the movie again with audio commentary. And the one thing Peter Jackson kept bringing up throughout the audio commentary is that when production of The Hobbit was shifted from 2 movies to 3 movies, for all intents and purposes, The Desolation of Smaug was the 3rd movie they had to make. And it really shows. A lot of the sequences are so padded. Actually, in changing the plans for the Hobbit movies from 2 movies to 3, the first movie comes out relatively unscathed, but the last 2 really suffer. And when I get to the 3rd movie, I feel that's going to be really short because I have a lot of the same issues with that one that I do with The Desolation of Smaug. But the thing is, there is just so much less about The Desolation of Smaug that I like. Like I said, in part, just a lot of the action sequences are extended and padded to fill out the runtime. And like I said, it really shows because they border on the ridiculous. I think the worst one is sort of the final one, when Bilbo and the dwarves confront Smaug, which, features the dwarves firing up a furnace and everything, and features one of the worst uses of CGI I've ever seen in any movie ever. Seriously, the gold statue looked awful. There, other examples of padding include this kind of Rube Goldberg-esque sequence that takes place when the dwarves arrive in Lake Town that just feels so unnecessary. No, that's the big one. I'm trying to think because like I said, there's a lot of overlapping issues, and I want to save some stuff for the Battle of the Five Armies. Although, since I did start talking about The Hobbit, I will talk about some of my big issues with the trilogy here. I think some of the problems with The Hobbit, not everything, mind you, but some of the issues, simply stem from the fact that Peter Jackson made Lord of the Rings first. I feel had he made The Hobbit first, they could have, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings could have been relatively isolated from each other. But I feel like because he did Lord of the Rings first and then went back and did The Hobbit as a prequel, the plot threads connecting them have to be so much stronger. Um, there is the new character written specifically for the movie, Toriel, played by Evangeline Lilly. I get why she's there. Evangeline Lilly does a fine job, but I hate how the character is used. And really, no, I will save that one for when we get to the next one. Don't worry. But yeah, no, just this movie feels. And because this is the third movie Peter Jackson had to make when production was shifted from 2 movies to 3, this one really feels unnecessary. Like, it really feels like you could chop 20 minutes off all of the sequences in this and just combine it with the third movie. Speaking of, number 5, The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. As I said, there's a lot of overlap in my issues with the Desolation of Smaug and the Battle of the Five Armies. I think they suffer from a lot of the same problems. Neither movie has enough substance to fill out an entire movie, so they have to pad a lot of sequences. That being said, I think I like the sequences in the Battle of the Five Armies more, which is probably saying something because a lot of the sequences I don't like are really stupid, like cartoonishly so. Like the opening where Bard kills Smaug. Like in the first movie, they showed the Black Arrow, they kind of built it up, and it's this giant thing that has to be fired from a ballista. So in the opening, Bard fashions a makeshift ballista, uses his son's shoulder to steady it, and fires it. Fires the Black Arrow that kills Smaug. Again, just this sequence is over the top, almost to cartoony levels, which is a problem with a lot of the sequences in this movie. And personally, also, I think it would have just been cooler if Bard shot that giant thing from his bow. But there's a lot of sequences like that. Like there's a sequence where Bilbo, Dwalin, and Balin go to try and warn Thorin, and they ride off to do so on a cart with spiked wheels. And as they're riding, 2 lines of trolls line up to try to stop them. The cart jumps over a rock and beheads the entire line of trolls. There's a lot of stupid stuff like that in this movie. But like I said, there's just more I like in this movie than there was in the previous movie. Like, my favorite part of this movie, my favorite part of the Hobbit trilogy, is the Necromancer of Dol Guldur subplot. And unlike some of the other things Peter Jackson added to pad the movies out, there is actually a precedent for this one. Because, in the book, The Hobbit, Gandalf leaves during the second act when the party reaches Mirkwood. And then he does not show up again until right before the Battle of the Five Armies, with only a throwaway line saying where he's been. And, of course, in Tolkien's other works, he said this is what he was doing. He was banishing the Necromancer, revealed to be Sauron, from Dol Guldur. And honestly, that final scene where the White Council comes together to expel Sauron, it's the best scene in the movie. I freaking love that scene so much. But yeah, this movie does, unfortunately, and there's also really strong performances in this movie. Martin Freeman is really good. Graham McTavish as Dwalin is really good. Richard Armitage as Thorin, I think, gives his best performance in this movie. No, he was really good in Unexpected Journey too. But like I said, there's just a lot more I like in this movie than Desolation of Smaug. And there are some big things with this movie and the trilogy as a whole that I'll talk about here too, because there's no other place to put them. I hate Legolas's expanded role in the Hobbit movies. Like, here's the thing. Thranduil, the king of the Woodland Realm, plays a pretty big part in The Hobbit, especially in the later half of the book. So, and because Thranduil is Legolas's father, I was expecting a cameo. I would have been fine with a cameo. Sorry, I've been talking for a while. But they actually expand his role, and it's just so bad. Like, in the climax, he's the one who kills the orc chieftain Bolg. And ooh, I forgot to mention this before going into that, because the expanded role Legolas plays robs a lot of opportunities of the other characters who were actually in the book and did things, because he does a lot of the things they do. But like, Legolas kills the orc chieftain Bolg. In the book, when the eagles arrive, Beorn, the skin changer, kills Bolg. You remember the guy who can shapeshift into a giant bear? Wouldn't that have been cooler to see? And also, the other big thing I want to talk about that I'll sort of end this on is I hate the aesthetic of the Hobbit movies. I do not like their style. So during production of the Hobbit movies, Guillermo del Toro was involved in some point at some capacity. I should have researched more what exactly happened with that, and I didn't. That's my fault, and I'm sorry. But yeah, no, he was involved to a degree on the Hobbit movies. And you can kind of see it. Guillermo del Toro has his own artistic style, his own, sense of design. And you can really see it all over the movies, most noticeably in the orcs. The problem is, his aesthetic does not gel well with the aesthetic Peter Jackson already created for Middle-earth. And the two designs just clash. And like I said, I just hate the aesthetic of the movies because it does not mesh well with the aesthetic of The Lord of the Rings. Number 4. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Now, whenever I sit down to rewatch The Lord of the Rings, this is always the one I dread. It's not particularly bad, I think. I just don't really like it. This is the one I think the pacing in The Two Towers is the slowest. I forget what the exact phrasing was, but I think someone referred to it as middle story syndrome, where because it's not the first and it's not the last, it kind of has to transition between them, which I think contributes to its pacing, but most of the time, I find this one to be really dull. There's a lot of great stuff in it, don't get me wrong, but this is the one where when I sit down to watch it, I'm always just checking my watch to see how far we're in and how far we have left. And no, but there is a lot of good things I do like about this movie, This movie introduces Faramir, who is, Boromir's younger brother, who is one of my favorite characters. In fact, just top 5, going from bottom to top, Radagast, Galadriel, Samwise, Faramir, Gandalf. Which, also to be kind of petty, Gandalf is my favorite character, and he's barely in this movie. Similar to The Hobbit, the book, and kind of the movies, he vanishes at the end of the first act and does not show up again until either the climax or the resolution. I'm going to call it the resolution. So yeah, just on the smaller, pettier side of things, that's why I don't like this movie. But, like I said, it's still better than the Hobbit movies, and I do still get a good time out of it. The sequences I continue to like. It's just, wow, this one is so slow. Number 3. The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. I think part of why I like An Unexpected Journey so much is, again, going back to my talk about the production of The Hobbit, from when production was switched from 2 movies to 3, this one came out relatively unscathed. Like, again, watching the movies with audio commentary, in the desolation of Smaug, after the dwarves, escape the prison of the Woodland Realm and then, go down the river in barrels, that scene where they first meet Bard and that silhouette of him about to fire his arrow? That's where the first movie was originally going to end when they were 2 movies. And so, obviously they just all they really did with An Unexpected Journey is they just pushed the end point back earlier. And I I think it really shows because like I said, most of the stuff because there's actually a lot that happens in An Unexpected Journey. You know, the introduction of Bilbo, the introduction of Gandalf, the dwarves, Rivendell, the trolls, the Misty Mountains, you know, the goblins, Gollum finding the ring. There is a lot to fill out this movie. So a lot of the sequences, you know, nothing is padded out, nothing is stretched out longer than it needs to be. And also this movie just really captures the tone of the book. Like I said, I think one of the problems with the Hobbit movies is that Peter Jackson just made Lord of the Rings first, so it has to tie much more strongly into the Lord of the Rings, even though The Hobbit has the book again has a very different tone from Lord of the Rings. And this movie and An Unexpected Journey best captures the original tone of the book. Number 2, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Oh, this where do I even start with this one? I think strong performances, the characters are all introduced well, the emotional beats are hit really good, the pacing is really good, you know, like compared to The Two Towers, I'm not sitting down going, "Oh my god, when will this be over?" You know, and it's clear to see why this movie was nominated and won the awards it did. Um, you know, in particular, even though he didn't win, Ian McKellen was nominated for an Oscar for this movie, which just, even though the character is written the same in the books, I will say, going on the movies, Gandalf the Grey is better than Gandalf the White. Um, you know, a lot of iconic sequences. Oh, there's just so much to talk. I don't know what else to say. In hindsight, I should have rewatched these before I did this ranking. But no, I thought, oh, hey, I've seen these movies enough time. I can do this from memory, even though it's been about 2-3 years since I last watched them. But yeah, no, just the Fellowship of the Ring is really close to perfect. That's really all it comes down to. And you know what's coming, so let's not beat around the bush. Let's just jump right into it. Number 1, my favorite of Peter Jackson's Middle-earth movies, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Now, this one was actually really tough to decide because when I thought about this in the past, I've always been back and forth on The Fellowship of the Ring or The Return of the King being my favorite. You know, one minute I think it's The Fellowship of the Ring, the next I think it's The Return of the King. Lately, though, I've started watching a lot of reaction channels. Hey, it's 2020. We were bored. I had to find something to do. And when a lot of them would get to The Return of the King, it was just seeing them watch it for the first time and the whole range of emotions you go through watching it. It's like, no, yeah, Return of the King it really is my favorite. You know, it's the culmination of the first two movies. And and everything pays off here. And it pays off well. You know, like talking about trilogies or TV series, sticking the landing is really hard to do. And The Return of the King absolutely nails it. You know, the entire cast, who's been strong throughout this entire series, gives their best performances here. You know, Ian McKellen. Well, no, like I said, I think he gave a better performance as Gandalf the Grey. Viggo Mortensen, John Rhys Davies, Elijah Wood, Dominic Monaghan, Billy Boyd. But the real star, like the book really, is Sean Astin as Samwise Gamgee. Just, wow. I'm surprised among all the accolades The Return of the King received, Sean Astin didn't get anything. Like one of the greatest movie snubs in history, because he carries this movie and it is glorious. And you know, like I said, if The Fellowship of the Ring is near perfect, The Return of the King is perfect. And there you have it, my ranking and thoughts, as rambling as incoherent as they were, on Peter Jackson's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. What are yours? What's your ranking? Please, I invite you to start a conversation in the comments below. And remember to like, comment, subscribe. Click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload. And in the description box below, you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time.